All right. So are you ready to dive deep into continuous glucose monitors
I'm
today?
always ready to dive into the world of CGMs.
CGMs, for everyone listening who might not know the lingo.
Right.
You sent over a ton of articles and research for this one,
Yes.
including this continuous glucose monitor.pdf file. So
Yep.
you've clearly done some
Yeah.
homework already,
Oh, yeah.
but we're going way beyond just the basics.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one of the things that kind of stood out to me when I was going through all this stuff was this whole concept of compression lows.
Yeah.
What is that?
So that's really interesting. It's actually a great example of one of the limitations of the current technology for CGMs.
Okay,
So compression lows refers to basically inaccurate low glucose readings that you get
gotcha.
because of pressure on the sensor.
Oh, interesting.
So imagine you're
David
sleeping,
arm.
right? You're sleeping on your side and you have a CGM sensor on your arm.
Mm-hmm.
That pressure can actually distort the readings and make it seem like your glucose is lower than it actually is.
Oh, wow.
So that's what a compression low is.
So it's like a false alarm.
It can be, yeah. It can be like a false alarm, your CGM saying, hey, low blood sugar, but really it's just a reading error.
So that's got to be a little scary.
It can be, especially if you are someone who is really relying on those CGM alarms to alert you if your blood sugar is getting dangerously low.
Yeah,
So it's just a good reminder that while CGMs are incredibly useful tools,
right.
they're not perfect.
They're not infallible, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We got to always confirm if something seems weird.
Yeah, if something seems weird, especially if you're feeling any symptoms of hypoglycemia, always double check with a finger prick test.
Yeah, safety first, for
Mm.
sure. Okay, so we've touched on some of the limitations,
Right.
but why are CGMs such a game changer in the first place?
It really comes down to data.
Okay,
And not just any data, but it's continuous.
right.
So it paints a much more dynamic picture of your glucose levels.
So it's not just like one single snapshot.
Exactly. It's like, imagine trying to navigate a city
Oh, here we go with the analogies. I love it.
with just a single snapshot of the traffic patterns, you know? You
Yeah.
might get like a general sense of things,
Sure.
but you'd be missing all those real-time changes.
Yeah.
The detours.
Right, you got to have ways up.
Exactly. Like Waze or Google Maps, they're giving you those constant updates. That's what CGMs do for your glucose.
Gotcha.
It's like, instead of just seeing your blood sugar right now,
Right.
you get to see how it fluctuates throughout the whole day.
Okay.
You see how it responds to meals,
Mm.
exercise, stress, even sleep.
Wow, it's like a 247 window into what's happening.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah, into your metabolic processes.
So it's not just about like right now, but it's about seeing those patterns,
Exactly.
understanding those trends.
Precisely. And that can be incredibly empowering, honestly,
Also,
because then you can make really informed decisions
okay.
about everything from meal planning,
Yeah.
insulin dosing,
Mhm.
exercise routines, even sleep.
Wow. Really impacting everything.
Yeah.
So it's like a proactive approach,
Exactly. Proactive versus reactive.
not just waiting till something's wrong.
Exactly. And that proactive approach can have really significant impacts on your long-term health,
Makes sense.
reducing hypoglycemia,
Yeah.
lowering A1C levels.
That's huge. So it sounds like they're giving people with diabetes a much greater sense of control
Absolutely.
over their own health.
And that's really one of the most rewarding things about this technology. It's not
Yeah.
just numbers on a screen, you know?
Right.
It's giving people tools and insights
Yeah.
so that they can live healthier and more fulfilling lives.
That's awesome. Okay, so we talked about some of the limitations,
Yeah.
like those compression lows.
Right.
Anything else that we should be aware of?
Right.
Any other kind of drawbacks,
Mm.
challenges?
Of course. No technology is perfect. Another big one is what we call lag time
Okay.
between blood glucose and interstitial fluid readings. Remember, CGMs aren't measuring your blood sugar directly. They're measuring glucose in the interstitial fluid,
Okay.
which is the fluid that surrounds your cells.
Right, so it's like a little bit delayed.
Exactly, a delayed reflection of what's actually going on.
Gotcha.
And that delay is usually only 5 to 20 minutes.
Okay.
But it's still important to keep in mind, especially when you're making decisions about insulin dosing or treating low blood sugar.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
It's like looking through a rearview mirror, you know?
Yeah.
You can see where you've been, but not necessarily where you're going right now.
Okay.
Speaking of looking back,
Okay.
let's talk about flash glucose monitoring.
Ah, yes. So this is like the Freestyle Libre, right?
Exactly.
Like striving for more convenience.
Yeah.
How did that system shake things up?
So what's really fascinating is that it wasn't technically continuous in the same way as the other ones.
Wait, what? It was still measuring, right?
It was measuring.
Okay.
But instead of continuously transmitting data,
Mhm.
it would store readings for like 8 hours. And then you'd have to scan it with a reader
Okay.
to see what your levels were.
So you had to like make it do it.
Basically, it was kind of like taking a peek or a flash whenever you needed it,
Gotcha.
rather than constantly seeing those updates.
But it was tracking in the background. You just had to access it.
Exactly.
Interesting. Did that have any implications for like insurance coverage or anything?
It did, especially in the UK.
Okay.
Because it wasn't technically continuous, it wasn't always covered by insurance in the same way.
Oh, interesting.
But because it was cheaper,
Right.
it actually became really popular through the National Health Service.
Okay, so it kind of opened up access in some
Oh,
way.
exactly, yeah. It opened up access to a lot of people who might not have been able to afford or get access to the more traditional systems.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's evolved since then.
Oh, yeah.
The Libre 2, the Libre 3.
Exactly. They now have the continuous data transmission
Gotcha.
using Bluetooth.
Okay.
So they've caught up.
It's interesting how it started with a different approach and then kind of.
Great. It disrupted the field.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of disrupting the field,
Okay.
the development of CGMs has had some pretty remarkable milestones over the years.
Yeah.
Did you know that the first CGM system was approved by the FDA all the way back in 1999?
Oh, wow.
So we're talking over 2 decades of progress here.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, how much have things changed in that time?
Oh, dramatically.
Yeah.
Back then, the sensors could only be worn for about 72 hours.
Okay.
The transmission range was really limited.
Gotcha.
You practically had to be tethered to the receiver to get your reading.
Oh, that's not that convenient.
No, not at all. But as we know, necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
So over time, we've seen these massive advancements
Okay.
in wear time, transmission range,
Mhm.
the data display options. Now you can see trends right on your smartphone,
Right on your phone. That's great.
receive alerts, even share data with your doctor in real time.
Wow.
It's really remarkable.
So it's gone from like this clunky, almost medical device
Yeah,
to something that's much more integrated into everyday life.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of integration,
Yeah.
let's talk about one of the most exciting areas, I think, of development with CGMs, which is closed-loop systems.
Yes.
So this is the artificial pancreas.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds very futuristic to me.
It does.
Like, is this real?
It's getting there.
Okay.
So essentially, it combines a CGM with an insulin pump.
Mm-hmm.
So the CGM continuously monitors those glucose levels,
Right.
sends the data to a control algorithm,
Okay.
which then automatically adjusts the insulin delivery from the pump.
So it's like a little computer in your body,
That's a great way to put it.
just like making adjustments for you constantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So are we there yet?
We're not quite at the stage of fully automated blood sugar management,
Okay.
but there are several implementations that are being researched and refined.
Okay.
Some systems still need you to tell it when you're eating, but others are really getting much closer to autonomy.
Wow. That's so cool.
It is.
So this continuous glucose monitor.pdf document
Yeah.
mentions a few different implementations.
Right.
What are some of the key differences between them?
So one of the main differences is the control algorithm.
Right.
Some algorithms are kind of more aggressive,
Okay.
aiming to keep those levels within a really narrow range.
Okay.
Others are more conservative,
Gotcha.
allowing for slightly wider fluctuations.
So it's about finding that balance
It's about finding that sweet spot, yeah.
between tight control
Yeah.
and also avoiding any kind of like sudden drops
Yeah, exactly.
or spikes.
And the best approach really depends on individual needs and preferences.
Right. Makes sense.
Some people might want more hands-on control,
Yeah.
while others might prefer to let the system kind of do its thing.
It's like having personalized autopilot for your blood sugar.
I like that.
Pretty amazing. So are there any challenges though? I mean, it can't be perfect.
Of course not. One of the biggest challenges is that lag time that we talked about.
Right.
That delay between the blood glucose and the interstitial fluid readings.
Yeah.
It can be tricky for the algorithm to respond quickly enough to changes.
Oh, yeah, because if it's a little bit behind, then it's not making the right decision.
Exactly. It can throw things off a bit.
Gotcha. So are there other technical hurdles as well?
Another challenge is just the reliability of the insulin pump itself.
Oh, right.
These are complex devices.
Oh.
Even minor malfunctions can be,
Yeah,
pretty serious.
not good. Okay, so it's not just about like getting the algorithm right.
Right.
It's about the hardware also being...
The hardware has to be robust and reliable.
Yeah. Okay, so what about just the ease of use for these systems.
Yeah.
Are they easy to use?
That's a big focus for developers, for sure.
Yeah.
Trying to make them really intuitive and simple.
Okay.
So even for people who aren't necessarily tech savvy,
Right.
think, clear displays, simple menus, integration with smartphones, that kind of thing.
So that's part of the design process too.
Absolutely.
That's cool. So it sounds like closed-loop systems are really pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
They really are.
So what else is on the horizon?
Well, I think the ultimate frontier is non-invasive glucose monitoring.
Okay, so like no needles.
No needles, no sensors, no implants.
Time me up.
It would be amazing.
Yeah. So what are some of the approaches that people are looking into in this area?
Well, researchers are taking a lot of different approaches.
Okay.
Some are analyzing sweat,
Okay.
tears. Some are using light and sound waves to measure glucose levels.
Wow.
One really interesting one is spectroscopy.
Spectroscopy, isn't that something from like chemistry class?
It is. It's
Yep.
from chemistry class, but it turns out that light can actually be used to analyze glucose in the body.
Oh, wow.
So different molecules absorb and reflect light in unique ways.
Oh.
So they have like an optical fingerprint. And by analyzing the light that passes through your skin or reflects off your skin, we can actually determine the concentration of glucose in your blood.
So it's like shining a special light on your skin
Exactly.
and then being able to decode what it means.
Yeah, kind of like using light to peer inside your body.
That's really cool. Are there actual companies working on this?
Several. One making waves is Samsung.
Samsung.
Yes. They're exploring what's called Raman spectroscopy,
Okay.
which uses laser light to actually analyze molecular vibrations.
So it's not just the color, it's like how the light's behaving.
Exactly, and it's super accurate and sensitive.
Wow, this is amazing. So I can see why everyone's calling this the holy grail of CGM technology.
Right.
What other approaches are out there?
Another really promising one uses radio frequency technology.
Radio waves.
Radio waves.
How does that work with blood sugar?
It's almost like using radar, but on a tiny scale.
Okay.
The idea is you send these radio waves through the skin and then analyze how they're absorbed or reflected by glucose molecules.
So bouncing them off the sugar molecules.
Yeah, kind of.
Wow, that's crazy.
So the radio waves will interact differently with glucose than other molecules in the body,
Okay.
and that creates a signal
Gotcha.
that we can correlate with your blood sugar levels.
That is mind-blowing. So are companies actually working on that too?
Absolutely. A few examples are BioRx, AJAR, and No Labs.
Okay.
Each company has its own way of doing it, but they're all betting on these radio waves.
Wow. Okay, so it's so fascinating to see all these different approaches. Are any of these non-invasive CGMs actually available? Like, can I go buy one?
Some have actually received regulatory approvals,
Oh, okay.
but market adoption has been pretty slow so far.
Really? Why is that? I mean, if people want this so bad, what's holding it back?
One of the main things is accuracy.
Okay.
While some of them show a lot of promise,
Yeah.
they haven't quite reached the same level of accuracy and reliability
Gotcha.
as the traditional systems that we've been talking about.
So it's kind of a trade-off there.
It has a bit of a trade-off.
Convenience versus precision.
Exactly.
But, I mean, I imagine that as technology keeps getting better, those accuracy gaps will start to narrow.
Absolutely.
What about the cost?
Yeah.
I mean, are these non-invasive systems likely to be more affordable?
That's a good question. It's hard to say right now.
Yeah.
The development costs are significant.
Right.
So it's tough to know how that's going to translate to pricing.
Right.
However,
Yeah.
there is the potential for mass production,
Right.
economies of scale.
Yeah.
So that could make them more accessible eventually.
Okay, so it's kind of like any new technology.
Right.
Early adopters pay a premium,
Exactly.
and then over time, as it gets more refined,
Mm-hmm.
the price comes down.
Hopefully.
So what other non-invasive approaches are kind of on the horizon?
Okay.
I know this document mentions a couple of companies that are taking some really unique approaches.
Yeah, it does. One that really stands out is Nemora Medical.
Okay.
They've developed a system called SugarBeat.
Sugar beet.
Yeah, and it uses a disposable skin patch
Okay.
that draws interstitial fluid to the surface.
Interesting.
So you're still analyzing that fluid,
Okay.
but you don't need the needle.
Okay, so it's like a workaround.
It's a clever workaround.
That's really cool.
The patch communicates with this rechargeable transmitter,
Okay.
and it sends your readings to a smartphone app.
Oh, wow. That sounds really convenient.
It is very convenient.
Is it available here?
Not in the US yet.
Okay.
It's been approved in Europe and Saudi Arabia.
Interesting.
but they have submitted an application to the FDA.
So they're working on it.
They're working on it.
Interesting. Okay, what other companies?
So another one is Perfusa,
Okay.
and they're developing a really unique approach
Okay.
using a hydrogel microsensor that's inserted under your skin.
Hydrogel.
Yeah.
What is that?
It's a biocompatible material
Yeah.
that can hold a lot of water,
Okay.
and they use it to create this tiny sensor
Yeah.
that can actually stay under your skin for months
Wow.
without triggering an immune response.
So is that an implant or not?
It is still technically an implant,
Okay.
but it's much less invasive,
Gotcha.
and you can wear it for longer.
Okay.
The sensor communicates with an external reader that you place on your skin,
Okay.
and that transmits the data to your phone.
So it's like the best of both worlds almost.
Yeah, exactly.
You have the implant, but you also have that external data transmission.
Exactly.
Okay. What about Metronome Health?
Yeah.
I feel like I saw their name in some of this research as well.
They were working on a similar approach to Perfusa.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there hasn't been a ton of news about their progress lately.
Well, that's too bad. So I guess it's a reminder that not everything that starts out promising actually makes it to market.
Unfortunately not, no.
What about Movano Health? Weren't they working on like a ring that could measure glucose?
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
But they've actually shifted focus
Okay.
to a sensor ring that tracks other things like heart rate,
Okay.
sleep, activity level.
Well, that's too bad. I was really intrigued by the ring.
It was a cool idea.
Yeah.
But I guess they decided to focus on what's more feasible.
Right. Okay. Well, speaking of big companies,
Yeah.
we got to talk about Apple.
The elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
The Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch. So many rumors about them getting into the CGM market.
So many rumors.
Ye-
What's the latest?
Okay, so nothing's officially confirmed,
Okay.
but there are a lot of reports that they've achieved a proof of concept for a non-invasive CGM.
Okay.
That could be part of the Apple Watch.
Wow, that would be huge.
It'd be massive.
I mean, the Apple Watch is everywhere.
Right.
If they added this to it,
Game changer.
yeah,
It could really make CGM technology accessible to millions of people.
that's amazing. Who might not have considered it before.
Yeah.
But of course, we just have to wait and see what Apple actually does.
Right. It's like waiting for the next iPhone, right?
Exactly, yeah. Everyone's waiting with bated breath.
Okay, so while we wait for Apple,
Yeah.
what other companies are making progress in this non-invasive space?
There are quite a few, actually. One that stands out is Diamond Tech.
Okay.
They're a German company,
Okay.
and they've developed a non-invasive glucose sensor called the D-Pocket.
Okay.
It uses infrared laser technology
Wow.
to scan the skin and detect those glucose molecules in the interstitial fluid.
Infrared lasers, that sounds like sci-fi.
I know, right?
Okay, but is it real?
It is based on solid science.
Okay.
So infrared light can actually penetrate the skin
Okay.
and interact with glucose molecules,
Okay.
which produces this measurable signal.
So it's like those other spectroscopy approaches we were talking about.
Similar, yeah, but they're using infrared light instead of visible light.
Yep.
And they claim a really high level of accuracy,
Okay.
but it's not continuous yet.
Okay.
They're working on a continuous version called the D-sensor.
Okay, so that's coming eventually.
Hopefully.
That's really amazing.
It is.
Lasers for blood sugar. Wow. Okay, any other companies using like really unique approaches?
Yeah, there's this company called Glucomoticum.
Okay.
They're a Finnish company,
Okay.
and they're developing a method that also relies on analyzing that interstitial fluid,
Okay.
but there are no needles,
Okay.
no lasers.
What?
Yeah, they're a little bit secretive about exactly how it works.
Oh, come on.
I know.
Well, I'm very curious now.
You too.
It seems like every company has its own little secret
Right,
when it comes to this.
exactly. And then there's Acuity.
Okay.
They're a UK-based company,
Okay.
and they're taking a completely different approach.
Okay.
They're using the eye to measure glucose levels.
The eye. Really? I didn't know that was even a thing.
It's a relatively new area of research, but it's showing some promise.
Okay.
They're developing this device called the Acuity Indigo,
Okay.
which uses a technique called optical coherence tomography, or OCT,
Wow.
to measure changes in the refractive index of your eye.
Okay.
And these changes are thought to be correlated with your blood glucose levels.
So it's like creating a 3D map of your eye
Yeah.
with light
With light, yeah.
and then analyzing those subtle changes.
Exactly.
Wow.
And it's completely non-invasive.
That's amazing.
It could be really revolutionary.
So it's so incredible to see all these different people working on this problem
Oh, yeah.
with their own unique approach.
It's really exciting.
But, I think it's important to acknowledge that despite all this innovation, there are still some challenges and limitations to consider.
Absolutely, and I think
Uh,
it's important that we talk about them.
well, for sure.
I think accuracy is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Even with the best systems we have, there's still some room for error. And as we've been talking about, that margin of error can be kind of concerning when you're thinking about detecting and responding to quick changes in blood sugar.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like those hypoglycemic episodes that can be really dangerous.
Exactly.
Are there like specific things that can throw off the accuracy of a CGM?
There are actually a few,
Oh.
external factors like temperature,
Mm-hmm.
sweat, even just the pressure of your clothing, or like we said, sleeping positions, those can affect the readings.
Oh, wow.
And remember, we're still basically measuring glucose in the interstitial fluid,
Right.
which lags behind the blood glucose a little bit.
Yeah, it's like trying to predict the future by looking at the past.
It is.
You might get a general idea, but there are always going to be those like weird, unpredictable fluctuations.
Absolutely. And even though calibration-free CGMs have gotten so much better, they're not perfect.
Right.
It's still important to be aware of potential inaccuracies and sometimes double check with a finger prick test just to be safe.
Right. Especially if like your symptoms aren't matching what your CGM is telling you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good reminder that technology is a tool
Mm-hmm.
and it needs to be used like thoughtfully.
Yes.
You have to understand its limits.
For sure.
Okay. So what about cost and accessibility?
Yeah.
Are CGMs getting more affordable? Are they getting easier for people to get?
They are definitely more affordable than they were like 10 years ago,
Okay.
but they're still a big expense for a lot of people,
Right.
especially if you don't have good insurance coverage.
Yeah.
And even when they are covered by insurance, there can be a lot of restrictions,
Mhm.
like which systems are approved,
Right.
how often you can get replacements.
Gotcha. It's a lot.
Yeah, it really highlights the importance of fighting for policies that make this kind of technology,
Mm-hmm.
these essential diabetes technologies like CGMs,
Absolutely.
that they're affordable and accessible for everybody who needs them.
For everyone, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just about the upfront cost of the device, right?
No, it's not. There's also the ongoing cost of all the supplies.
Right, you've got sensors, transmitters, all of that.
Yeah, that can add up.
It can add up really quickly.
Yeah, so it's a financial burden that not everyone can deal with, and that's why
Right.
these systemic issues are so important to talk about.
Absolutely.
So we were talking about all this data earlier.
Yes,
I mean, can that be overwhelming for some people?
it definitely can.
Yeah.
Imagine looking at your phone and seeing a new glucose reading every 5 minutes.
Yeah, that would stress me out.
Right. That's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's maybe newly diagnosed or just not used to tracking their blood sugar that closely.
Yeah, it's like information overload.
It is. It can lead to anxiety,
Yeah, right.
decision fatigue, all of that.
So how are they addressing that?
Well, developers are putting a lot of effort into designing user-friendly interfaces
Okay.
and good data visualization tools
Okay.
to help people understand the data.
Gotcha.
So, things like easy-to-read graphs,
Mhm.
color-coded alerts,
Hmm.
personalized insights that take all that complex data and turn it into something you can actually use.
Yeah, so it's not just about collecting data, it's about making it meaningful.
Exactly. It's about giving people the information they need to make good decisions about their own health.
Right. Okay, so as these CGMs are getting more connected to other devices and platforms, what about data privacy and security?
That's a really important point. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking about sensitive health information being transmitted wirelessly,
Right.
stored in the cloud.
Yeah.
So data privacy and security are absolutely crucial.
So what's being done to make sure that data is protected?
Well, a lot of things, actually.
Okay.
Data encryption, secure servers, multi-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Those are just a few of the measures that companies are using.
Okay.
And more companies are being transparent about their data privacy policies.
Gotcha.
So people can make informed choices about how their information is being used.
Yeah, that's important.
It is.
It's like any other kind of sensitive personal data, you have to be careful
Absolutely.
and make sure it's not being misused.
Right. And as this technology keeps developing, those conversations about privacy and security are only going to get more important.
For sure. So it sounds like there's a lot to consider here,
There is.
both the technical stuff and the bigger societal implications.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like CGMs have the potential to really change the game for diabetes management
I think so.
and hopefully improve the lives of millions of people.
That's the goal.
Yeah, that's what makes this feel so interesting, right?
Right.
It's not just about gadgets. It's about helping people live healthier lives.
It is. And as we keep pushing the boundaries, who knows what we'll be able to do in the future.
That's what makes these deep dives so fun.
Exactly.
You never know what you're going to find.
There's always something new to discover.
Well, on that note, I think we've come to the end of our deep dive into the world of continuous glucose monitors.
It's been a great conversation.
It has. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of discovery, everyone. We hope you learned some interesting things today
Me too.
and maybe got a new appreciation for how technology can really change our lives.
Absolutely. And remember, knowledge is power.
Yes,
The more you know about your health and the options you have, the better decisions you can make.
so true.
And the healthier you can be.
And until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.
Yeah, accuracy is a big one.
Yeah, sure.
Even with the best systems we have, there's still some room for error.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've been talking about, that margin of error can be kind of concerning when you're thinking about detecting and responding to quick changes in blood sugar.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like those hypoglycemic episodes, that can be really dangerous.
Exactly.
Are there like specific things that can throw off the accuracy of a CGM?
There are a few things.
Okay.
External factors like temperature,
Mm.
sweat, even just the pressure of your clothing, or like we said, sleeping positions can affect the readings.
Oh, wow. So it's really sensitive.
It can be.
Oh, interesting.
And remember, we're still basically measuring glucose in the interstitial fluid,
Right.
which lags behind the blood glucose a little bit.
It's like trying to predict the future by looking at the past.
It is.
You might get a general idea, but there are always going to be those like weird, unpredictable fluctuations.
Absolutely. And even though calibration-free CGMs have gotten so much better, they're not perfect.
Right.
It's still important to be aware of potential inaccuracies and sometimes double check with the finger prick test just to be safe.
Right. Especially if like your symptoms aren't matching what your CGM is telling you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good reminder that technology is a tool and it needs to be used like thoughtfully.
Yes,
You have to understand its limits.
for sure.
Okay. So what about cost and accessibility?
Yeah.
Are CGMs getting more affordable? Are they getting easier for people to get?
They are definitely more affordable than they were like 10 years ago,
Okay.
but they're still a big expense for a lot of people,
Right.
especially if you don't have good insurance coverage. And even when they are covered by insurance, there can be a lot of restrictions.
Okay.
Like which systems are approved, how often you can get replacements.
Gotcha.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it really highlights the importance of fighting for policies that make this kind of technology.
Mm-hmm.
These essential diabetes technologies like CGMs,
Absolutely.
that they're affordable and accessible for everybody who needs them.
For everyone, for sure.
Yeah. And it's not just about the upfront cost of the device, right?
No, it's not.
There's also the ongoing cost of all the supplies.
Right. You've got sensors, transmitters, all of that.
Yeah, that can add up.
It can add up really quickly.
Yeah. So it's a financial burden that not everyone can deal with. And that's why
Right?
these systemic issues are so important to talk about.
Absolutely.
So we were talking about all this data earlier.
Yes, all that data.
I mean, can that be overwhelming for some people?
It can be for sure.
Yeah.
Imagine looking at your phone and seeing a new glucose reading every 5 minutes.
Yeah. That would stress me out.
Right. It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's maybe newly diagnosed or just not used to tracking their blood sugar that closely.
Yeah, it's like the information overload.
It is. It can lead to anxiety,
Right.
decision fatigue, all of that.
So how are they addressing that?
Well, developers are putting a lot of effort into designing user-friendly interfaces
Okay.
and good data visualization tools
Okay.
to help people understand the data.
Gotcha.
So, things like easy-to-read graphs, color-coded alerts,
Right.
personalized insights that take all that complex data and turn it into something you can actually use.
Yeah, so it's not just about collecting data. It's about making it meaningful.
Exactly. It's about giving people the information they need to make good decisions about their own health.
Right. Okay, so as these CGMs are getting more connected to other devices and platforms, what about data privacy and security?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about sensitive health information being transmitted wirelessly,
Right.
stored in the cloud. So data privacy and security are absolutely crucial.
So what's being done to make sure that data is protected?
Well, a lot of things, actually.
Okay.
Data encryption, secure servers, multi-factor authentication. Those are just a few of the measures that companies are using.
Right.
And more companies are being transparent about their data privacy policies.
Gotcha.
So people can make informed choices about how their information is being used.
Yeah, that's important.
It is.
It's like any other kind of sensitive personal data. You have to be careful to
Absolutely.
make sure it's not being misused.
Right. And as this technology keeps developing, those conversations about privacy and security are only going to get more important.
For sure. So it sounds like there's a lot to consider here,
There is.
both the technical stuff and the bigger societal implications.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like CGMs have the potential to really change the game for diabetes management
They really do.
and hopefully improve the lives of millions of people.
That's what we're all hoping for.
Yeah, that's what makes this field so interesting, right?
It's exciting to see what's happening.
It is. It's not just about gadgets. It's about helping people live healthier lives.
Exactly, and giving them more control over their health.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, on that note, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of CGMs.
It's been a great conversation.
It has. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And thank you to everyone listening for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope you learned something new today, and we hope you'll join us next time for another deep dive.